Good evening, tired traveler. You arrive here with your eyelids still cooperating, and that alone deserves a quiet nod to yourself. Above you, starlight rests over rose stone, and the canyon air feels cool enough to rinse the day off your skin. You are about to drift through a legendary passage where water once whispered along carved rock, and the night still remembers it. Fair warning, you probably won't survive this without wanting to touch every wall. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been, your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You stand at the edge of Petra, and you also stand at the edge of something thinner than you expected, the scene where one moment becomes another. The shift doesn't announce itself. It simply settles over you, like a shawl of silence placed on tired shoulders. The night feels older, steadier, as if darkness has been lived in for a very long time and knows exactly where to put its calm. You let your breath slow until it feels heavy and warm. The desert around you is quiet, but not empty. Stone holds the day's heat like a memory. Sand keeps a soft record of your steps. Somewhere far off, a small creature adjusts itself in sleep. You don't chase the sound. You let it pass, and you keep walking. In front of you opens the sick, a narrow gorge that begins like a mouth and becomes a winding corridor. You step inside and the air changes immediately. It cools, not sharply, but politely, the way shade can feel like a reassuring hand at the nape of your neck. The walls rise close on either side, tall and protective, and your footsteps soften as sand accepts them. Above, the sky becomes a slim ribbon, a dark strip threaded with stars. Each curve of rock hides the next curve, and that is strangely comforting. You don't need the whole path. You only need the next few steps. The sandstone holds color even in starlight. It looks like muted wine, dusty rose, and warm clay, layered in bands that ripple like water frozen mid-sigh. You notice long natural scars where old floods once insisted on their route, and you notice places where human hands have persuaded the stone. Edges sharpened, ledges trimmed, steps cut where a foot would want to land. The canyon is both wild and listened to, and the two histories sit together without fighting. Your fingertips drift outward on their own. You try to resist for a moment, as if dignity matters in a canyon, but the rock is too inviting and you are too tired to perform. You brush the wall with the pads of your fingers. It is cool, gritty, and unexpectedly tender, like the surface of a well-worn bowl. A fine dust clings to your skin. The sick signs its name on you in the smallest way possible, and you accept the signature like permission. As you walk, deliberate details appear in the darkness. Shallow niches puncture the rock face, small hollows that could cradle lamps, offerings, or simple reminders that someone intended this passage to be friendly after sunset. Near the base of the wall, a smooth groove runs forward with stubborn devotion, too consistent to be accidental. It looks like quiet handwriting. You understand, without anyone needing to explain it, that water has been guided here on purpose. The idea of water in a desert city makes your mind want to wake up and start demanding answers. You gently refuse. You keep your attention soft, the way you keep your movements soft in a room where someone is sleeping. You listen instead. The sick has its own soundscape, a faint breeze sliding along stone, the quiet scrape of sand, your breath, your heartbeat, the occasional pebble that decides to move closer to gravity. Everything is calm, but nothing is dead. The passage narrows and widens with lazy confidence. Sometimes the walls lean close enough that you feel held. Sometimes they ease back and let the night breathe. Your thoughts follow suit. They narrow into one simple focus: step, breath, touch, then widen into a drifting calm. Time travel here does not feel like a leap. It feels like easing into an older rhythm, one that existed before your worries learned your name. The canyon teaches you something simple: steadiness can be a shelter. A bend approaches and the darkness deepens into a pocket of stillness that seems to hold its breath. You slow down, not because you are tired, but because you sense something waiting beyond the curve: space, openness, perhaps the first hint of carved grandeur. You pause for one long inhale. In that pause, you catch it: not wind, not your own body, but the faintest suggestion of moisture. A whisper so soft it barely earns the name. It rises from the stone and from that patient groove at your feet, as if water once spoke fluently here, and tonight it is still murmuring. You follow it deeper, one quiet step at a time. You keep moving, and the canyon responds the way an old place does. It gives you just enough to stay curious, never enough to feel full. The sick turns again, and again, each bend a slow invitation to forget the straight lines of your usual life. Your shoulders relax as if the stone is quietly carrying part of your weight. You don't rush. The night is not built for rushing, and Petra, especially Petra by starlight, has no interest in being consumed quickly. The groove you notice near your feet grows more obvious as your eyes adjust. It's a narrow channel, carved with intention, running along the base of the wall like a patient companion. In places, it dips and rises, negotiating the natural folds of rock with a humble determination. You imagine the careful planning it required, not grand speeches, not heroic gestures, just hours of measuring, cutting, smoothing, testing. Water here is not a background detail. It is the main character that never brags. You crouch for a moment, letting your knees complain and then settle. The stone is cool under your fingertips. You slide your hand along the channel's edge and feel tiny ridges where tools once bit in. The marks are faint, softened by time, but still present, like a lullaby that has been sung so many nights it has worn into the walls. You can almost sense the city's old pulse in it: people moving, vessels filling, hands washing, bread rising, dyed pots stirring, animals drinking, gardens staying alive in a place that does not naturally offer kindness. A faint dampness lingers in a seam of rock nearby, just a trace, as if the stone has stored a memory of wetness and refuses to forget. You press your palm there and feel the slightest cool difference, and for a second you swear you can smell it: minerals, earth, something clean and quiet. Your mind wants to label it, to solve it, to turn it into a neat fact you can carry away. But the night is asking you for something else. The night is asking you to notice. You stand again and walk on, and the channel stays with you. Sometimes it disappears under a drift of sand, and you have to look for it the way you look for a thought that's slipping away. Sometimes it reappears in a clearer line, like reassurance. Above it, carved into the wall, you begin to notice shallow arcs and notches, places where water could be guided, where overflow could be managed, where the flow could be split and redirected. It's like watching a city's quiet intelligence written in stone. You round another bend and the canyon widens into a slightly more open stretch. Here the rock face holds deeper textures, and the banding of sandstone looks almost like folded fabric. In the dim light, the patterns shimmer faintly, as if the stone has a secret habit of breathing. Your steps echo a little more now, bouncing softly off the walls. The sound is gentle, never sharp, as if the canyon has learned to absorb harshness over centuries. And then you see it, a small cutout in the rock, a basin-like hollow, smooth inside. It sits at an easy height, as if meant for hands to reach without strain. you lean closer. The inside surface has a faint sheen, not wet now, but polished by use. You imagine people pausing here, setting down jars, letting water settle, skimming sand, taking a slow drink. You imagine someone rinsing their fingers before handling something precious, or washing dust from a child's cheek. Nothing dramatic. Just life continuing, because water makes it possible. The canyon air shifts again, and you sense a breeze sliding along the channel's route, like an invisible finger tracing the path. It makes you think of how sound travels in narrow spaces, how even whispers can become clear. Perhaps that's why the idea of water whispers fits so perfectly here. Not because water literally speaks, but because everything about water in Petra is quiet, clever, and intimate. It moves through hidden places. It asks you to listen closely. It rewards patience. You continue forward, letting your gaze drift from the ground to the walls and back again. In some places, the channel is doubled, a parallel line running close by, like a backup plan. In other places, it widens slightly, as if to slow the flow, to let sediment drop. You realize, slowly and with a kind of respect that feels like gratitude, that this is not just engineering. It's care. It's the city deciding day after day that the people inside it deserve water, deserve gardens, deserve clean hands, deserve tea steeped properly, deserve a bath after a long journey, deserve the small luxuries that keep the heart from drying out. A tiny pebble skitters somewhere ahead, and you pause, letting your body still. The sound fades. The canyon returns to its quiet. You notice how your own breathing has become more measured, more desert-like, slower and more efficient. Even your thoughts are learning to conserve. As you walk, you begin to see faint traces of what the channel once served beyond the sick, small branching grooves that disappear into the rock, hints of routes leading outward to cisterns and reservoirs tucked away like secrets. Your imagination follows them, up into higher ground where rainwater could be caught, into shaded hollows where it could be stored, down to courtyards where people gathered. The system feels like a network of kindness hidden under stone. You feel a small smile tug at you, the gentle kind that doesn't need a reason. The modern world teaches you to admire the loud things, towering skylines, blazing screens, constant announcements. Petra teaches you to admire what works quietly, what lasts, what keeps people alive without demanding applause. The sick narrows again, and the ribbon of sky above becomes thinner. Stars press closer together in your vision. The walls lean in like guardians. The channel at your feet continues forward, faithful as breath. And as you follow it, you sense that the canyon is guiding you towards something larger, something carved with grand intention, a reveal that the night is preparing with the patience of a storyteller who knows you will enjoy the moment more if you have to wait for it. You take the next bend as if you're turning a page you've waited all night to read. The walls draw closer, the passage narrowing into a final, deliberate squeeze. Your shoulders tuck in without being asked. Your steps soften, not from fear, but from the sense that the canyon is arranging a reveal and would prefer you not clatter through it. Above you, the sky is a thin ribbon, a blade of darkness pinned with stars. The air turns cooler and cleaner. You catch a faint mineral freshness rising from cracks in the sandstone, old dampness remembered by stone. Near your feet, the carved channel you've been following fades under a lip of rock. You step past it and feel a quiet certainty. The sentence is about to end, and something spacious is waiting after the punctuation. A pale glow appears ahead. Not bright, not sharp, just a gentle thinning of shadow, as if the night itself is becoming transparent. You slow, because your body understands before your mind does. Your breath steadies into the pace of the canyon. Inhale, step. Exhale, step. Your thoughts fall into line behind your feet. Then the sick loosens its grip. At first, you see only a slice of carving caught between the walls, a column, a curved edge, a hint of geometry too perfect to be natural. That sliver stops you. You take one more step and the view opens wider, and suddenly there it is, Petra's treasury facing you in starlight, rising out of rose sandstone like a dream that decided to become architecture. Moonlight slides across the facade, turning some ridges silver and leaving recesses velvety dark. The stone's color is muted at night, less. Look at me! And more. I have always been here. You step into the open space at the end of the sick, and the sky spreads above you again, wide and deep, as if the canyon has finally let you have your breath back. The facade climbs in calm tiers, tall columns with fluted shafts that catch light in thin stripes, carved capitals, a central doorway cut into pure shadow, a pediment that forms a steady triangle, and above that the rounded tholos, perched like a crown. The whole thing is carved directly from the cliff, and your mind tries to argue with that fact. It fails. You look longer, slower, until the impossibility becomes ordinary in your body. You let your gaze travel without rushing. It drifts from column to niche, from carved figure to worn edge. Faces and details have softened over time. Wind and sand have done their quiet sanding, but the intention remains sharp. This wasn't built to be temporary. It was made to endure long nights, sudden rains, heat that bakes thought dry, and visitors who arrive carrying too much inside their heads. You move a few steps closer, stopping where the ground feels still. Your feet sink slightly into pale sand. The soundscape changes. In the sick, sound was held close, pressed into stone. Here, it can drift outward. You hear your own breathing, surprisingly gentle. You hear wind slip across carvings like fingertips across fabric. The desert doesn't shout at night. It murmurs. You tilt your head up. Near the top, the carved urn sits above everything, dark against the star field. It looks like a small instruction: contain what matters. Preserve what you can. Keep the precious things from evaporating. You don't turn it into a moral. You just let it rest in you like a pebble in a pocket. Your mind briefly tries to do what it always does: explain, label, catalog. This is Nabatean craft. This is a facade shaped by many influences. This is stone that once greeted merchants bringing resin and spice along desert routes. The thoughts arrive like little birds, eager and noisy. You watch them, then let them fly off. Tonight, facts can be soft. You don't need to hold them tightly to be near the place. You face the central doorway. Inside is pure darkness, a cool mouth of shadow. It invites your imagination to sprint. Hidden chambers, offerings, stories tucked away behind stone. Your imagination almost does, then remembers the whole point of this journey: slow down. You let the doorway be what it is, a quiet threshold, not a riddle you must solve before you're allowed to rest. Thin clouds pass over the moon, and the facade subtly shifts. Brightness fades, then returns, like a slow breath. The carvings seem to pulse between glow and hush. You realize you are watching time move without any need for measuring, just light doing what light does, and stone receiving it the way stone receives everything, patiently. The desert chill starts to curl around your ankles. You notice it, and you don't fight it. Coolness is part of the night's medicine. You loosen your jaw. You let your shoulders drop. You let all settle into something calmer, like gratitude. You stand perfectly still for a moment, as if the treasury is teaching you how to be steady. The canyon behind you waits in silence. The hidden water channels you followed feel suddenly more meaningful, every careful groove leading to this open space, this carved face turned toward the stars. And you breathe again, slow and quiet, as if you don't want to disturb the stone's sleep. You remain facing the carved facade until the last trace of hurry drains out of you. The night cools, and the sand at your feet starts borrowing warmth from your soles without asking. You let it. You are not here to win an argument with the desert. You are here to be carried. A softer light flickers to your left, small, amber, deliberate. It doesn't stab the darkness, it coaxes it. Figures move along the edge of the open space, their silhouettes gentle against stone. They don't rush towards you like you're a problem to solve. They move the way people move when they've lived in this place long enough to trust it. One of them lifts a lantern slightly, not as a command, more like a courtesy. The glow spills over the ground in a warm oval, and your feet drift into it the way tired hands drift toward a fire. A second lantern appears a few paces ahead, then a third, forming a slow honey-colored path away from the facade. You follow without feeling chased, and without feeling lost. You are simply being guided, the way a guest is guided in a home where the layout is known by heart. The path bends behind a low curve of rock, and the towering carving slips out of sight. You expect darkness to thicken, but instead it softens. Lantern light grows steadier. The air changes, less canyon cool, more sheltered, holding a faint scent of warmed clay and crushed herbs. You step into a courtyard tucked into stone, small enough to feel intimate, wide enough to breathe. A shallow basin sits near the entrance, its rim smooth from years of hands. A thin trickle slides into it from a spout cut into rock, quiet as a secret. Water again, always water, appearing where it shouldn't, like a miracle that got tired of being dramatic and decided to be practical. You pause. A nearby figure dips fingers into the basin and touches brow and chest, a simple gesture of arriving. You mirror it. The coolness on your skin feels like a clean page. Lanterns rest in niches along the walls, each flame protected from wind by stone. The light is steady and unpanicked. It throws rippling shadows across low woven mats spread on the ground. A small brazier glows at the center, not roaring, just breathing. Around it, people sit or kneel, hands busy with quiet tasks that don't require loudness to matter. Twisting cord, turning a spindle, sorting beads, smoothing leather. You hover at the edge, unsure what shape your body should take. Your modern habit is to apologize with posture, to pretend you aren't taking up space. The courtyard doesn't ask you to shrink. A hand gestures toward an open place on a mat, inviting, not fussy. You lower yourself down slowly, grateful for how the woven surface meets you. Your knees complain once and then fall silent, as if they also approve of this plan. Warmth reaches your face from the brazier. It smells of wood and something sweet, date pits, maybe, or resin that perfumes the smoke. A small bowl is set near you. Inside are dates split open and pressed around crushed nuts, their surfaces glossy in lantern light. You take one. It dissolves into sweetness that makes your jaw unclench without you noticing. Your body, so used to being braced, starts to believe it is allowed to soften. A rhythm begins, not from words, but from hands. Someone taps fingertips on a clay surface, slow enough that your heartbeat wants to match it. Another brushes a reed bundle across a drum skin, more texture than noise. The sounds do not demand attention. They offer it, like a blanket laid within reach. You let the rhythm settle into you, and the tight parts of your day loosen, one by one, like knots learning they don't have to stay. Steam rises from a small pot near the brazier, carrying mint and something earthy. A cup is lifted and held out toward you. No words. Just a gesture, calm and certain. You accept it. The clay warms your palms. You sip. The drink is sweet, herbal, and clean, like a careful rinse for the inside of your chest. A child slips through the edge of lantern glow carrying dyed cord almost as long as their arm. They lay it down with exaggerated care, then sit and sort strands by color, serious as a small priest of patience. Watching them, you feel your own mind wanting to imitate that focus. to become small and steady. You realize how long it has been since you let your attention rest on one thing without multitasking your worries. Along the wall, faint carvings appear where lantern light grazes them, lines and symbols softened by time. They don't feel like decoration for strangers. They feel like memory kept close, a way of telling the stone, and the people inside it, that they belong to something older than a single night. You trace one shallow groove with a fingertip and feel history as texture, not homework. You glance back toward the basin and notice damp footprints leading away from it, evidence of many arrivals and many resets. This courtyard is not only a place to rest, it is a place to become gentle again. Your shoulders drop. Your thoughts stop auditioning for importance. The canyon outside can keep its grandeur. Here, in this tucked-away circle of lantern light, ordinary hands and a thin ribbon of water hold you like you were expected all along. The courtyard's rhythm stays in you as you rise, slow and careful, as if you're trying not to wake the stone. Lantern light paints your hands honeygold. Mint warmth still lingers on your tongue, and the sweetness of dates sits in your chest like a small, satisfied sigh. Nobody hurries you. Even movement here seems to have learned patience from the canyon walls. At the far edge of the courtyard, beyond the brazier's soft breath, a low work area waits in a pocket of shadow. A flat stone table rests against the wall, its surface smoothed by years of use. Tools lie in neat rows, chisels with worn handles, slender picks, a bow drill, a stone mallet darkened where countless palms have held it. They look made for hands, practical, familiar, unshowy. Someone kneels there over a small block of rose sandstone. In the lantern glow, the stone's layers ripple in blush and rust. The chisel rests at a calm angle. The mallet lifts and falls with gentle regularity. Tap, tap, tap. Not loud, not aggressive, each strike small enough to feel polite, but certain enough to change a shape. Tiny grains drift down like sleepy snow and settle without complaint. You lower yourself nearby, cross-legged again, and simply watch. The courtyard refuses drama. This is craft, steady as breathing. The rhythm edits your thoughts, sanding away the sharp corners you carried in with you. The carver's focus is absolute, but not tense. Shoulders stay loose, jaw stays easy, attention living in fingertips. You notice how the chisel tip follows the sandstone's grain instead of fighting it. The stone is not an enemy to conquer, it is a material to listen to. Your modern instincts, push harder, go faster, win, lift their heads for a moment, then lie back down when the stone refuses to be bullied. Here, effort stays quiet, and that's the whole point. You even notice your shoulders unclench, as if they've been waiting for permission. The tap of stone on stone becomes a metronome, and your eyelids briefly consider clocking out early. A finished piece rests nearby, already shaped into a shallow curve like the beginning of a bowl. A vine-like spiral has been incised into its rim, echoing the canyon's banded layers. The lines look alive, like the hand that made them still rests inside the mark. You imagine it holding herbs, salt, or a few dates, ordinary things made dignified by care. A small sandstone fragment is set beside you, palm-sized, one corner rounded smooth. No words arrive, and none are needed. The gesture says, if you want, try. Your heart gives a tiny, unnecessary hop, because apparently you can still feel stage fright in a lantern-lit courtyard where nobody is judging you. You pick up the stone. It's cool from the night air, heavier than it looks, and it fits your palm like it has been waiting. A slender tool is placed near your knee, pointed enough to make a mark, gentle enough to forgive mistakes. You rest the stone on your thigh and press the tip softly into the surface. The sandstone yields with surprising kindness. A pale line appears. You trace again, slower, and the line deepens. The sound is a quiet scrape, more whisper than noise, like chalk on a board that's been washed clean. Stone dust clings to your fingertip and rides the ridges of your skin. You resist wiping it away. Let it stay, it's proof you're here, and the powder smells faintly mineral. You blow once, gently, and the dust rises and falls like a tiny sandstorm that lasts one breath. You try to follow a natural band in the rock, letting the layers guide your hand the way that hidden channel guided your feet in the sick. It's the same lesson in a different language. Work with the flow. You carve a simple curve, something that feels like a path, like a canyon bend, like the treasury's grand lines shrunk down into an intimate gesture. You are not making a masterpiece. You are making contact, and contact is enough. Nearby, someone polishes a finished piece with a smooth pebble, rubbing in small circles until the surface catches lantern light. The hush of friction is almost designed for sleep. You watch shine emerge slowly, as if the stone is waking from inside itself. A larger carved fragment is turned in careful hands, and you see how even the underside is cared for. Attention isn't only for what will be seen. It's for what will be held, what will last, what will touch other hands in the future. The thought lands softly. You think of the treasury again, towering in moonlight, and realize it is made of countless small decisions like this. Angle the chisel, breathe, tap gently, brush away dust, begin again. You take one more small sip of cooling mint tea, and your breath loosens, ribs widening without permission. Your own little groove grows smoother under your thumb. It feels right, as if it has always belonged there. When you set the piece down, your fingers are powdered pale, and your mind is quieter than it has been in days. The courtyard's sounds continue, tap, ember, breath, steady as a heartbeat you can finally hear. Beyond the lanterns, darkness waits like a gentle hallway, and you sense the night calling you onward with the calm promise of more discoveries, delivered just as softly as these. Your fingertips still carry a faint grit of rose stone as you drift away from the work table, and you notice how satisfying that is, proof that you touched something real tonight, not just your own worries. The courtyard's lanterns continue to breathe their honeyed light. The brazier keeps its small, steady glow. The tapping of chisels becomes softer behind you, like a lullaby fading as you move into the next room of a dream. A warm, darker scent begins to pull you across the courtyard. Smoke that isn't only wood, sweetness that isn't only dates. It's the smell of grain meeting heat, of something plain turning comforting. You follow it the way a sleepy person follows a blanket, without thinking too hard, without asking if you deserve it. Near the sheltered wall, a low clay oven rests like a patient animal. Its mouth glows faintly, ember red, and the air around it feels gently alive. A flat stone nearby holds a dusting of flour. Someone's hands press dough into rounds with slow confidence, palms moving as if they've done this through 100 nights and 1,000 mornings. The motion is rhythmic, calming, press, turn, smooth, press again. You realize your own breathing is matching the pace, as if your lungs are learning to bake, too. A round of dough is lifted and laid onto the hot surface inside. The oven responds with a soft hush. Heat rises, not aggressive, just present. In moments, the dough changes, swelling slightly, skin tightening, surface taking on a faint blush. The smell deepens. It's not fancy. It's not trying to be trendy. It's bread, doing the oldest magic in the world, becoming more than what it was. A woven tray sits close by, lined with cloth and holding finished rounds stacked like warm moons. The top one has a slightly blistered surface, freckles of deeper brown. You reach toward it and then stop, caught by an old reflex. Ask first, don't assume, don't be greedy. A hand gestures, calm and clear. The gesture says, yes, take. Your hand obeys. The bread is warm enough to soften your palm. You tear a piece. The inside steams faintly, tender and elastic. The first bite settles you immediately, like the desert has finally decided you're not just passing through. There's a quiet humor in it. You can travel through time, walk through carved canyons, stare at monumental stone, and the thing that truly makes you feel safe is warm bread. Your grand adventures, it turns out, are still powered by snacks. A small dish appears beside you, crushed herbs mixed with salt, maybe a trace of oil, dark and fragrant. You dip the bread's edge and taste. The flavor is earthy and bright at once, like plants that have learned to survive sun and stone. Your tongue wakes up briefly, then relaxes again, satisfied. Dates arrive next, not as decoration, but as a serious offering. Some are whole and glossy, their skins wrinkled like tiny desert maps. Some are split and filled with nuts. You notice how the sweetness isn't loud. It's deep, slow, like a song played on a low string. You take one and chew with your eyes half-lidded, letting the sugar do its gentle work on your tired body. You begin to notice something else, the quiet logic behind every food choice. Bread for steadiness. Dates for quick energy and comfort. Nuts for lasting fullness. Herbs for brightness, for keeping the mouth from feeling dusty. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasteful. In a place where water whispers instead of flows, hospitality isn't about excess. It's about care that understands limits. A clay jar sits in the shade, its mouth covered with cloth tied by cord. Someone lifts it slightly, testing weight, listening to the slosh inside like you might listen to a sleeping child's breathing. The jar is set down again with reverence. Water storage isn't dramatic here. It's sacred in the most practical way. You think of the channel in the sick, that quiet vein carved into stone. You think of the basin where you cooled your fingers and wiped a day off your face. All of it is part of the same story. The city survives because it pays attention. Nearby, a shallow basket holds grain, small, pale kernels gathered and guarded like treasure that doesn't shine. A stone grinder rests beside it, smoothed by time, with a matching handstone shaped perfectly for palms. Someone kneels and begins to grind, arms moving in slow arcs. The sound is soft, sandy, soothing. The grain breaks down into flour like a promise kept. You watch, and you understand why the pace stays slow. Fast grinding wastes strength. Fast grinding overheats the body. Fast grinding makes mistakes. Here, energy is treated like water, measured, respected, used with intention. You notice that the busiest hands are never frantic. Even when tasks stack up, bread to bake, herbs to crush, grain to grind, everything moves in a calm queue. It's not laziness. It's wisdom. The night teaches you the difference. You feel it in your own muscles. When you slow down, you last longer. When you stop fighting time, time becomes softer. A cloth bundle is opened nearby, revealing dried herbs and strips of preserved fruit. They're arranged carefully, sorted by type, tucked away for later. Storage is part of hospitality. 2. The ability to share today without stealing from tomorrow. You imagine cool corners of stone rooms where jars sit in shade, where dates are kept from ants, where bread can be wrapped and carried for journeys. You imagine the same careful hands you saw carving stone now tying knots in cloth, sealing lids, checking stores, making sure the community doesn't wake up hungry. You take another bite of bread and let your eyelids sink a fraction. The lantern light feels heavier now, more molten. Your body starts to believe, fully, that it's allowed to rest here. You look at your hands and see the pale dust from carving still lodged in the lines of your fingers, mixing with flour from the bread. Stone and grain together. Creation and sustenance together. Petra's whole personality in one palm. The mint tea returns, warm but not hot, sweet but not cloying. You sip slowly. The drink clears the last sand from your throat. The courtyard's rhythm continues around you, hands working, embers breathing, water-guarded bread rising, quietly wrapping you in a community you haven't earned and yet are allowed to borrow for the night. And as you finish the last bite, you sense the night gently nudging you onward again, as if it's ready to show you how these people weave patience into everything they do. The warmth of bread and ember stays with you as you drift along the courtyard's edge, careful not to disturb the slow choreography of hands. Your fingers still hold a faint chalk of rose sandstone dust, now softened by flour and tea, proof you touched something real tonight. Lantern light draws you toward a sheltered nook where the air smells different: crushed leaves, bark, and something cleanly mineral. Bundles of plant stalks hang from a beam, tied neatly and drying. Shallow bowls hold shavings and powders, each sorted with the calm seriousness of a kitchen that feeds color instead of hunger. A semicircle of clay pots rests near the brazier's warmth. The liquid inside looks dark, almost black, yet when a stirring stick lifts, a hidden sheen flashes, blue under shadow, red under brown, gold under green. Nothing boils or rages. The heat is steady, as if dye, like sleep, arrives only when you stop demanding it. One pot carries that earthy fermented leaf scent that makes you think of damp soil after rare rain. Another smells woody and warm. A third has the cool note of wet stone, and you remember the 6 faint moisture seam, the way rock can hold a memory of water. These pots feel like that, memory held in liquid form, practiced gently by people who learned long ago that beauty can come from humble things. A length of wool is rinsed in a basin. The water swirls, faintly tinted, then clears as the cloth is lifted and wrung, never brutally, always with respect. Drops fall back with soft plinks that sound like tiny, polite footsteps. The cloth is carried to a line where other pieces hang and breathe in the breeze. In lantern glow, the textiles look muted. In moonlight they wake. Blue deepens into the color of a midnight river. Red warms like embers under ash. Pale cloth holds the quiet cream of desert dawn. The colors don't shout. They feel lived in, like comfort rather than display. A loom sits low to the ground, simple in shape yet astonishing in order. Threads stretch tight, and hands move through them with the confidence of repetition. A shuttle passes. A thread slides. Fingers press and tighten. A pattern appears not as a surprise, but as the inevitable result of patient doing. You sit close enough to follow the logic. Over, under, then a gentle beat to set the line. The sound is a soft thump, like a heartbeat muffled by blankets. It joins the night's other rhythms until the courtyard feels like one slow instrument. The pattern forming is modest, bands and small repeats, a narrow blue line, a broader rust red, a pale strip between them like a breath. You sense meaning without needing it explained. The design feels like this place: shadow, stone, ember, water. You think of the canyon wall's rippled layers, how time stacked color into rose bands. The loom is doing the same, stacking thread into a landscape you can wrap around tired shoulders. A finished strip is folded into a neat bundle and tied with dyed cord. A small carved bead sits on the knot, practical and familiar. You imagine the bundle traveling quietly, traded for grain or salt, offered as a gift at a doorway, warmed by hands instead of admired by eyes. Even movement, here, can be gentle. A fresh cloth is dipped into the darkest pot. It disappears under the surface and emerges heavy and dull at first, almost disappointing. Then the air touches it, and the color begins to bloom. Oxygen works its quiet miracle. The cloth shifts from greenish shadow into deepening blue, right before your eyes, like dusk turning into night. Your mouth softens into a small smile. It's magic that refuses to be loud. Your hands twitch with the urge to touch the fabric mid-change, and you stop yourself. The night has been teaching you manners. Also, if you stain your fingers blue, you'll be wearing, mysterious traveler, 4 days. and your ordinary life will not be emotionally prepared for that level of drama. You keep your palms folded and watch the color settle into itself. A shuttle is set near you, light in the hand, and you take it as carefully as if it might startle. You slip it through the threads once, then again, slower the second time, feeling the loom's quiet resistance. Tension held steady, space offered exactly where it should be. You press the thread into place with a gentle beat. The sound lands in your chest like relief. In a shallow bowl, powdered pigment is mixed with a measured splash of water and stirred until smooth. The water is used sparingly and reused carefully. Basins covered, rinse water saved, cloth wrung over bowls instead of sand. You notice how every drop is accounted for. The hidden channels you followed in the sick echo in your mind, those quiet grooves that made the city possible. Here, water isn't only for thirst. It's for identity, for warmth, for the gentle pleasure of color in a world made mostly of stone and sand. You breathe in damp wool, herbs, warm clay. Lanterns flicker. Moonlight silvers the top threads of the loom. Hands keep moving, steady and unhurried, and you realize your own thoughts have started to weave the same way, one gentle thread at a time, no tangles, no sharp knots. You sit inside that rhythm until it wraps you, and you feel ready to follow the lantern glow onward again. You leave the dye pots and the loom behind with the same care you used to handle the shuttle, as if the courtyard's quiet order could wobble if you moved too fast. Lantern light still marks a gentle route, and your body follows it without argument. Bread warmth sits in you. Mint cools the back of your throat. A dusting of rose stones still lives in the fine lines of your fingers, mixed with flour like the night's private recipe for calm. Beyond the courtyard, the path slips between rock faces that rise like sleepy shoulders. The lanterns are fewer now, spaced farther apart, each flame a small promise that the dark is friendly. You walk into one pool of light, then let the shadow between flames feel like a pause, not a warning. Overhead, the strip of sky widens, and stars scatter across it, steady and unbothered. A set of steps begins where the ground tilts upward. Not grand steps, just stones shaped into footholds, edges worn by countless saws. You place your foot on the first one and feel the cool honesty of rock. Your knees register the plan and offer their opinion. You climb anyway, because the night has been gentle with you and you don't want to be rude. Each step is a small commitment. You keep your breathing slow, letting your lungs do the same careful accounting you've watched everywhere in this place. Energy is water. You do not waste it. The air carries scents that feel like the desert's medicine cabinet, dry thyme crushed underfoot, sage brushed by your sleeve, a faint resin sweetness from a shrub warming against stone. You pause where the steps widen into a shallow ledge. Below, the lantern glow looks like amber beads threaded through the canyon. You can't see the courtyard clearly now, but you can sense it, embers breathing, hands weaving, dye turning deep blue when air touches it. Your fingers flex, remembering stone dust and wool, and your mind stays surprisingly quiet. Up here, the wind finds you more honestly. It slides along the rock face and then across your cheek, cool and careful, like a finger checking whether you're already asleep. It brings a sound with it, faint and almost unbelievable, a small, distant trickle. Not a stream. Just a suggestion of water somewhere, tucked into Petra's hidden bones. The same whisper you followed in the sick. You stand still for 3 slow breaths, letting the sound braid itself into your silence, and you catch a faint scent of crushed juniper from an old offering tucked in a niche. You climb again, slower now, letting the night do the heavy lifting of time. The steps turn and rise in a gentle zigzag. Along the wall, shallow niches appear, places where small lamps can rest, protected from wind. Some niches are empty, some hold a dark trace of soot. You imagine careful hands shielding flame with a palm, the way you shielded your own tired mind from rushing thoughts. A small cairn of stone stands at the edge of the path, pebbles stacked neatly, no bigger than your fist. Another sits farther up. Then another. You recognize the gesture without needing a lesson. You pick up a pebble from the ground. It is cool, smooth, and ordinary. You add it to the nearest stack, and the tiny click it makes is strangely satisfying, like a stitch pulled snug. As the path rises, the rock walls ease back and the world opens. The city lies below in darkness, shapes and cut lines you only half see, but feel. Above, the stars widen into a dome, and the moon hangs off to one side, more companion than spotlight. From this height, you understand why people climb. Not to conquer anything. To remember they are small, and to let smallness be soothing. At the top, the steps level into a broad shelf of stone, smoothed in places by many feet. A low, carved platform sits near the edge, simple and steady, aligned with the sky. There are no loud decorations. Just stone shaped into a place where attention can rest. Near it, a shallow depression holds a scatter of dried herb stems and a few pale grains, offerings that do not sparkle, but matter. You kneel, letting the stone cool your shins. The desert air brushes your eyelashes. You place your palm on the platform and feel rock holding a faint memory of sun. Your mind gathers the night's details without gripping them: bread and dates, dye and wool, chisels tapping, water hiding in channels, lanterns breathing in niches. You do not perform. You simply breathe, slow and deep, and let your thoughts become as quiet as the canyon. The stars keep their steady watch. The wind keeps its soft teasing. And for a moment, you feel folded into the place, just a tired traveler allowed to stand under the same sky and be held. When you rise, your joints remind you are made of flesh and not sandstone. You accept the message with a tiny, amused exhale. You brush dust from your knee, though the dust clings like it wants to come along. Then you turn back toward the steps, carrying a new kind of quiet with you, one that feels like a blessing you can actually use. You start down from the high shelf with the careful slowness of someone carrying starlight in their ribs. The steps receive your feet, worn edges guiding soles that have been here before. Other travelers, other nights, other bodies learning the same lesson. In Petra, you do not hurry. You let gravity do its work politely, one measured step at a time. Lantern light appears again in soft intervals, each flame a small island in the dark. You move from one to the next, letting the shadows between them feel like pauses in music rather than empty space. Your breath stays steady. Your knees complain once, then settle, as if they've accepted that this dream has stairs. Your fingers brush your belt out of habit, checking that the little things are still attached to you. The cord is there. The pouch is there. The reassuring weight at your hip should be there too, your water skin, that humble companion you stop noticing until it isn't where it belongs. Your hand meets air. You check again, slower, as if your palm might be sleepy and mistaken. But the spot stays bare, oddly exposed, like a missing button on your shirt. A tiny, unhelpful thought rises. You have traveled through time just to become the kind of person who loses their water. Excellent. Truly the desert's favorite comedy. You stand still on the steps and let the night stay quiet around you. Your throat isn't dry yet. Your body isn't in danger. But your mind registers the meaning anyway, the way it registers a closed gate. Water here is not a casual accessory. Water is permission to keep walking, to keep being calm, to keep pretending you're in control of your life. And you've seen how much care lives inside a single drop. You followed the 6-carved vein like a secret sentence. You cooled your fingers at a basin where a trickle arrived as if on schedule. You watched rinse water get saved, cloth wrung over bowls, jars covered like sleeping babies. In a place like this, losing a water skin isn't dramatic, it's simply embarrassing, The way dropping your spoon at a quiet dinner is embarrassing. The silence doesn't shame you, but it does make the clink feel louder in your head. You don't let panic rent space in your chest. Panic is expensive. You've watched how people here treat scarce things: measured, respectful, never wasted. So you treat your worry the same way. You breathe in slow. You breathe out slower. You let the missing water skin be a small problem, not a myth. You begin to rewind your route like a thread on the loom: the high shelf where you knelt, the little cairn where you placed a pebble, the niches with soot, the zigzag steps, the lantern path leading back to the courtyard with embers and bread in it. Somewhere along that gentle thread, you set the water skin down, or it slipped loose while you were busy being tender with the sky. You look along the steps and the edges of rock, scanning for the familiar shape: the rounded belly of the skin, the loop of cord, the darker patch where it's been handled often. Lantern shadows stretch and rearrange everything. For a moment, a dark lump near the wall makes your heart lift, then it turns out to be a stone. A second time, you're fooled by a folded scrap of cloth. The night, apparently, has jokes. You continue down with softer eyes, letting your body remember how it moved earlier, when you weren't hunting. Memory is often more reliable than worry. You slow at wider places where you might have paused, where a tired hand might have set something down. For just a second, you touch the rock shelf beside the step and feel only cool grit. No strap. No familiar give. At the bend where the wind once found you, you pause and listen. You hear the faint, stubborn trickle you noticed before, somewhere hidden in Petra's bones. It sounds almost like encouragement. Keep it gentle, keep it steady, don't turn this into a storm. You descend the last stretch and the courtyard's sheltered air returns, carrying the scent of embers and baked grain. Your body relaxes at the familiar warmth, and that's when thirst rises quietly, like a small hand tugging your sleeve. Not desperate, just present. A reminder that bodies are simple and honest, even in beautiful places. You step into the courtyard's edge and let your gaze sweep the ground: mats, baskets, tools, the low oven mouth glowing. You look for your water skin as if it might be sitting politely where you last drank. It isn't. You notice, with mild disbelief, how quickly an absence can become a shape in your mind. A few faces tilt toward you in the lantern light, calm and curious. No one rushes. No one scolds. The kindness in the air keeps your thoughts from sharpening. You touch your belt again, not because it helps, but because it confirms the truth: the water skin is somewhere else. You turn your attention back to the path, and you decide, quietly, without ceremony, to retrace the thread. Up the steps a little, back toward the cairn, back toward the place where you let the stars widen your chest. If the water skin wants to be found, it will likely be waiting where you felt most peaceful, because of course the universe would hide it in the exact moment you finally relaxed. You step into the lantern path and begin to walk, listening for the night to offer a smaller clue. You follow the lantern path back toward the steps, and the night meets your decision with the same calm it has offered all along. No alarms ring. No gust announces your mistake. Petra simply continues being Petra: stone, shadow, ember glow, and the patient sense that everything has its place, even when you temporarily forget where that place is. A figure from the courtyard moves with you, carrying a lantern. The flame doesn't glare, it hums. It sways slightly with each step, and you find yourself watching that sway the way you watch dye bloom in air: small motion, steady meaning. The light spills across the ground in a warm oval, and your eyes begin to read the sand like a page. Footprints appear more clearly than you expect. Your own are there, pressed into dust with quiet edges, because you came down carefully. Beside them are older marks, rounded, faint, softened by time and wind. You let the lantern angle shift, and the shadows inside each print deepen. Suddenly you can see where your heel pivoted, where you paused, where you turned your body to look up at the stars like you were trying to remember how to be a person. You reach the first wider ledge where you stopped earlier. The rock is smooth in places, as if it has been stroked by 1,000 tired hands. You scan the edges, and the lantern makes every pebble look suspiciously meaningful. Your mind offers a brief, sarcastic review of your skills: time traveling, stargazing, bread enjoying, water carrying apparently optional. You kneel and run your fingers along the ledge's lip. Cool stone. Grit. A tiny seam where air stays cooler. No strap. You don't let frustration tighten your throat. You keep your breath slow and keep looking. The lantern holder shifts position, and the light slides along the base of the wall, revealing a shallow carved channel again, the same quiet groove you followed in the sick. Here it is interrupted by steps and shelves, but it reappears with stubborn faithfulness, like handwriting that refuses to be erased. You let your gaze follow it. Channels have logic. They do not wander randomly. They take the path that makes sense. You decide to borrow that mindset for your search. You move upward a little, step by step, but you watch more than you climb. The lantern's gentle sway changes the shadows, and small details rise out of the dust. A faint smear where a hand brushed the wall, a soft scuff where your foot dragged, grains that slid into a tiny crescent at the corner of a step. The desert is a quiet accountant. It records everything. You only have to learn how to read the ledger. The wind returns, cool and polite, and with it comes that faint trickle you noticed earlier, water's whisper threading through stone. It isn't louder here, just clearer, as if the rock has stepped aside for it. The sound gives your mind a direction. If you set the water skin down to listen, to kneel, to touch a platform, then the place where water whispers might also be the place where you forgot your own water. The irony lands softly. Petra, it seems, prefers jokes that don't disturb the peace. You reach the zigzag turn where shallow niches dot the wall. Your steps make small echoes that fold back into silence almost immediately. Lantern light licks the niche's edges, showing soot stains and old shadow. You glance into each one, half expecting your water skin to be sitting there like a well-behaved pet. It isn't. But one niche holds something else, a darker patch of stone, faintly damp, where cool air gathers. You pause and listen. The trickle seems to braid itself through that spot, as if it knows the way. You lower your gaze to the ground beneath the niche. The dust is disturbed, a shallow sweep, a rounded dent, as if something bumped the sand and rolled a fraction before stopping. Your heart lifts, but it stays polite. You angle the lantern lower. The light catches a loop of cord half buried at the step's edge, dark against pale dust. There it is. Your water skin rests on its side like it chose that exact corner for a nap. The strap lies slack. The mouth turns away, almost as if it's pretending innocence. You reach for it slowly, because somehow you've learned to handle even your relief gently. Your fingers close around the leather, and a familiar weight settles into your palm. It feels absurdly good, like finding a missing piece of your body. You check the tie. Still secure. Nothing spilled. The desert didn't punish you for your lapse. It simply held your mistake until you were calm enough to retrieve it. You let a breath out that feels like unclasping a belt after a long day. You don't drink immediately. You take a moment to respect how close the problem stayed to small. Then you raise the water skin and take a slow sip. The water is cool, tasting faintly of leather and mineral, and it spreads through you like quiet mercy. Your shoulders drop. Your mind unhooks from its brief worry. The lantern holder remains beside you, steady flame, steady presence. You retie the strap at your hip with deliberate care, as if you're apologizing to water for leaving it unattended. Then you turn back down the steps, carrying both your water and a renewed respect for Petra's subtle clues, drips, echoes, dust, and the soft sway of lantern light that teaches you to look without rushing. You descend with the water skin secure at your hip, and the relief of that small rescue settles into you like warm bread settling into a tired stomach. The lantern beside you sways once more, then the path levels, and the courtyard's sheltered air returns, embers breathing, herbs drying, woven mats holding the shape of people who know how to rest. You do not celebrate your competence. You simply tighten the strap once, the way you might tuck a blanket around your own shoulders, and you let the night keep its dignity. Still, a quiet lesson hums under your ribs. Even your calm can slip, and the desert will not yell, it will just wait. You drift past the oven's glow, past the dyed cloth hanging in muted bands, past the stone table where chisels keep their soft tapping song. Your eyes move differently now, less grabbing, more reading. Dust, shadow, and tiny drips have become a language you didn't know you could understand, and it makes you careful in a way that feels good. A lantern is lifted ahead, guiding you beyond the courtyard circle. The path slips behind a shoulder of rock, and the air cools noticeably. The scent shifts from ember sweet to damp mineral, like stone that has been holding its breath. Somewhere nearby, water is not only remembered, it is stored. You follow the lantern into a tucked passage where the rock face dips inward. A low opening, more cut than built, leads into darkness. You step through and feel the temperature drop, immediate and delicious. The space is quiet in a different way here, not open night quiet, but underground quiet, the kind that makes your heartbeat sound like it's wearing boots. Lantern glow reveals a cistern chamber, sealed stone walls, a floor sloped for runoff, air cool and moist. You smell faint algae and clay. In the center is a mouth of stone with a rim worn silky by hands and rope. A bucket rests nearby, its handle polished. Rope lies coiled in tidy circles, not as decoration but as a refusal to waste strength on tangles. A figure moves with the calm of someone who belongs to this place the way a key belongs to its lock. Hands check the rope, fingers feeling for phrase the way you felt for damp seams in the sick. The lantern is set in a niche, flame protected. The bucket is lowered, not dropped. You hear rope rasp softly, then a quiet splash, water agreeing to be carried. Your thirsty brain tries to propose a heroic chug, as if you survived a grand ordeal instead of a minor episode of forgetfulness. Petra does not reward drama. Petra rewards measurement, cleanliness, and patience. The bucket rises slowly, water weight changing the rope's song. When it reaches the rim, it is lifted with both hands, controlled and respectful. A long-handled ladle appears clean. Water is poured into smaller vessels without the bucket ever touching jar lips. No careless dipping. No dirty mouths. The rules exist in the movements, and you understand them in your bones. Along the wall, you notice shallow lines etched at regular intervals. Beside them sit small pebbles arranged in deliberate stacks. Cairns again, but indoor and quieter. They are accounting. A vessel fills to a line, then stops. Another fills to a different line, then stops. Every portion is a choice, and every choice is remembered. You are guided toward the markings. Your fingertips hover, then touch. The stone is cool and slightly damp. The grooves catch lantern light and feel like the loom's pattern translated into water. Repeat, measure, repeat. You think of the dye pots, rinse water saved. You think of bread dough, flour portioned without fuss. Everything here follows one philosophy wearing different clothes. Take what you need, protect what you can, share without turning it into a performance. In a shaded corner, clay jars sit half buried in sand, their necks sealed with cloth and pale clay. The seals keep dust out, slow evaporation, discourage insects. You notice how the jars are placed away from lantern heat, where air stays coolest. Petra stores water the way it stores quiet, in shade, in depth, in places the sun cannot bully. Your hand brushes your water skin, and you feel a small, embarrassed gratitude toward it. It is a portable cistern, a traveling promise. You sip again, but this time you do it the way the chamber teaches you, slow, measured, without greed. The water tastes clean and slightly mineral, and you imagine the path it took, rain caught high, guided through channels, settled in darkness, protected by sealed stone. Near the cistern mouth, a smooth slab leans against the wall, chalked with pale residue. Lime or plaster used to seal hairline cracks. Someone runs fingers along it, checking texture, checking readiness. Maintenance again. Quiet work that prevents disaster. You think of the treasury's towering facade and realize that grandeur depends on invisible caretaking like this. Rope checked, seal repaired, line measured, ladle rinsed. You stand in the cistern's cool breath until your shoulders drop one more notch. Above ground, stars glitter and wind wanders. Down here, droplets hold stillness, and the city's pulse slows to a drip you could count if you wanted, though tonight you mostly want to let it count you. When you step back toward the doorway, lantern warmth returns to your face. The desert's dryness waits outside, patient, but it no longer feels like a threat. You carry your water with more respect now, and you carry a quieter kind of confidence too, built not from heroics, but from understanding the rules that keep a community alive one careful drop at a time. You step back out of the cistern's cool hush and let the warmer night air settle on your skin like a familiar cloak. Lantern light feels brighter after darkness, even when it's gentle. Your water skin sits properly at your hip now, as if it learned its lesson too. You walk with the kind of calm that comes from understanding the rules of a place. Measure, protect, share, repeat. The path returns you to the courtyard's edge, where embers breathe and hands keep their steady rhythms. The oven still glows faintly. Dyed cloth still hangs, deepening slowly as air touches it. The stone table still holds tools in neat rows. Everything looks the same, and that is comforting, until you notice a small wrongness. The basin near the courtyard entrance, the one that welcomed you with cool water earlier, sounds different. Not silent, but thinner. The trickle that once slid into the bowl like a soft promise now arrives as a hesitant drip. Plink, pause, plink. It feels like a sentence losing words. A few heads tilt toward the sound, not alarmed, but attentive. You recognize that attention now. This is the same look you saw in the cistern chamber, the quiet alertness of people who don't panic, but do not ignore. Water is acting odd, and oddness is a signal, not a drama. You drift closer and kneel beside the basin. The rim is still cool. The surface inside reflects lantern light and small trembling shapes. You touch the water with one finger. It's cool, but the level is lower than it should be for this hour. The stone spout above it holds a wet shine, as if it wants to give more but can't. You lean in and listen, letting your breathing quiet down. Behind the drip, you catch something else, a faint gurgle trapped in rock, like water trying to clear its throat. That sound isn't angry, it's congested. And suddenly you understand the problem in a body way, the same way you understand your own throat when it's dry. Something is blocking the flow. The night offers you a small, ridiculous thought. Of course the desert's water line chooses tonight to misbehave, the exact night you were already humbled by losing your water skin. Petra, apparently, likes a theme. You keep your mouth from turning it into a grin. Humor is fine, but you stay respectful. This is someone's life support, delivered in a whisper. You stand and follow the spout's line upward with your eyes. The rock above the basin has shallow carvings and faint channels, guiding water down from somewhere higher. A narrow groove runs along the wall, dipping behind a protruding ridge. The groove is dark in places, damp in others. You watch where dampness stops. That is where the story breaks. You move to the wall and crouch, lantern light grazing the stone. There, at a shallow bend in the channel, sits a small accumulation of silt and grit, packed like a tiny dam. A few dried leaves cling to it, probably blown in, stubborn as bad habits. The water has been trying to push through, but slow water can't bully. It only negotiates, and tonight it's losing. A hand appears beside you holding a reed bundle, like the same kind used earlier to brush a drum's skin. Humble tool, familiar motion. You take it carefully and press the reed tips into the packed silt. The material gives a little, then resists, like dough that hasn't been kneaded enough. You brush gently, not wanting to scratch the channel deeper or break its edges. The brush flicks out fine grit, and the lantern catches dust motes floating like tiny stars. You pause and listen again. The gurgle changes, less trapped, more hopeful. Then it stalls. The blockage is deeper than the surface, the way worries often are. Petra, again, not dramatic, just persistent. You glance toward the basin. The drip continues, patient, almost stubborn. Your mind reaches for the simplest solution: flush. Not a flood, not wasteful, but a controlled wash to loosen silt and carry it onward. You feel around for a container that can pour precisely. Your water skin tugs at your hip, proud of itself. You hesitate. Using your own water feels symbolic, and symbols are not always practical. But you remember the rules you just learned: share, protect, measure. If the line fails, the whole courtyard loses far more than what you'd pour. You untie the water skin and tip a small amount into the basin, just enough to fill a ladle. The cool water glints in lantern light. You lift it carefully and pour it along the channel above the blockage, letting gravity do the work. The water runs down, meets the packed silt, and pools for a heartbeat before seeping through in thin threads. It carries a few grains away, but not enough. The dam still holds. A smooth pebble is offered, one of those river-polished stones that feels too perfect to be accidental. You take it and press it gently into the silt, not hammering, just coaxing, rocking it in small circles. The motion is like polishing sandstone, like grinding grain, like weaving, repetitive, patient, precise. The silt starts to crumble at the edges. A leaf loosens and slides free, and it feels absurdly satisfying, like pulling a thorn from fabric. You pour another small ladle of water. This time, the flow catches the loosened grit and carries it forward. The gurgle shifts again, less throat clearing, more breath. You work in a rhythm: brush, pebble, pour, listen. The courtyard's other sounds fade behind this small task. For a few minutes, your whole world is a narrow groove in stone and the quiet insistence of water trying to do its job. The silt gives way suddenly, not violently, just decisively. A small plug breaks loose and slides down the channel with a soft, gritty hush. You hear it travel, then vanish into the next bend. The trapped gurgle becomes a smooth whisper. You lean back and listen, and the sound now is steady, unembarrassed water moving as it should. You scoot back to the basin and watch the spout. The drip becomes a thin stream again, shy at first, then confident. Water slides into the bowl in a continuous ribbon, and the surface rises, catching lantern light and calm reflections. The courtyard seems to exhale. Not loudly, just settled. You retie your water skin and pat the knot once, as if you're thanking it for not being precious about itself. Your fingertips are wet and gritty, and you rinse them in the basin without wasting. One quick wash, then hands out, droplets shaken off gently. The night returns to its steady pace, ember breath, soft tools, woven patterns, and now the proper whisper of water restored. You sit back on your heels for a moment, and let the satisfaction be simple. No applause, no speeches. Just a small blockage cleared with reeds, a pebble, and a few careful pours. Petra's favorite kind of victory, quiet, practical, and oddly soothing, like solving a tiny puzzle right before sleep, then letting your mind finally unclench and float. The basin stream keeps running, steady now, and the courtyard loosens around it like a shoulder letting go. You rinse the last grit from your fingertips, shake off a few quiet droplets, and retie your water skin at your hip with the kind of respect usually reserved for things that prevent regret. No one makes a ceremony of what you've done. Embers breathe. Wool hangs in dyed bands. Stone taps stone in a soft, patient rhythm. Under everything, water whispers again, and that whisper is enough. Lantern light lifts ahead as a gentle suggestion. You rise slowly, knees offering a brief complaint, then cooperating, and you follow the glow out of the courtyard's shelter and into open night. The air is cool, dry, and clean, sliding over your face like a rinsed cloth. Your breath lengthens without being asked. The path curves between rock shoulders and opens into a hollow shaped for listening. Rows of seating step down in calm arcs, carved directly from rose stone, and you realize you are standing inside a theater the mountain made for itself. You descend one tier and let your palms skim the bench. The sandstone is cool and worn smooth where bodies have rested for generations. Tiny grooves mark where feet found the same step again and again. A shallow chip catches your fingertip, softened by time, more like a memory than a wound. Above, the sky widens into a dark bowl scattered with stars. Below, the stage area lies pale and still, dust resting there in a thin veil. The space holds silence the way a cistern holds water, contained, protected, patiently saved. You take a slow sip from your water skin, measured, like you learned in the cool chamber, and even the small sound of swallowing seems to travel, returning as a softer version of itself. It's almost amusing how this place can turn an ordinary bodily sound into something gentle and important. You offer the rock a single light tap of fingernail on stone. The click glides away, rounds itself on curved rows, and returns as a warm echo, as if the mountain is saying, "I heard you, and I kept it gentle." You brush your thumb across the bench and hear a faint sand rub. That too loops back as a whisper. The canyon earlier pressed sound tight against its walls. Here, sound is allowed to wander and come home. A breeze slides across the tiers and becomes layered hush. It meets the carved curves, splits, and returns from different angles, braiding itself into a wordless choir. The sound isn't loud. It is textured and soothing, like cloth being folded in slow hands. Your eyelids grow heavier, not from boredom, but from safety. You remember the pebble cairn you added to up on the high place, that tiny click of stone on stone, and you realize the theater does the same magic. It takes small sounds and makes them feel safe. Somewhere higher in the seating, a rhythm begins, fingers brushing a taut surface, not striking, just stroking, creating a soft pulse that your ribs want to follow. A thin reed tone joins, breath turned into melody. No words arrive, and none are needed. The notes drift across the stone arcs, and the theater catches them, holds them, and returns them without sharp edges. You don't try to locate the players precisely. The music doesn't ask to be found. It asks to be felt. The looping melody circles you, and your body responds the way it responded to bread warmth and mint tea, by surrendering tension. Your jaw unclenches. Your tongue rests. Your shoulders drop. The inside of your chest, usually crowded, starts to clear. You let your hands lie open on your knees, palms up, as if you're showing the night you've stopped gripping. A small inward smile appears when you remember losing your water skin on the steps, your hand meeting air, your mind trying to turn a minor mistake into a desert tragedy. In this bowl of stone and echo, that panic feels distant and almost sweet, like a bad dream you can forgive once you wake. You remember dye turning deeper as air touched it, and you sense your own mood doing something similar, settling from jittery to deep night blue, one slow breath at a time. You remember the little blockage in the channel, and how a reed and a pebble were enough. The rhythm continues, steady as a handstone grinding grain. The reed tone rises and falls like a thin stream returning to a basin. You sit inside that logic and let it hold you. You allow yourself a tiny hum, so soft it barely leaves your throat. The theater receives it kindly. Your hum lifts, rounds, and returns warmer than you offered it, as if the mountain is humming with you. You stop before it becomes a performance, because the last thing this ancient stone needs is your ego trying to start a concert. Lantern glow near the aisle dips slightly, as if even the flame is getting sleepy. The breeze keeps its quiet choir. The wordless music thins, then returns, thinning again, like waves that never intend to wake you. You stay seated in the carved bowl of stone and sky and let history do what it does best tonight. Not impress you, not lecture you, but soothe you, steady as water in a channel, steady as hands on a loom, steady as your own breath finally finding the rhythm it was always meant to keep. You leave the theater the way you leave a warm blanket, slowly, hoping the comfort will follow you. The last wordless tones dissolve into stone. Lantern light waits at the aisle like a patient guide, and your feet find the path without asking your mind to approve. The ground levels into a corridor between rock shoulders, and the air changes, less open sky cool, more tucked away warmth. Scents arrive before sight. You catch crushed herb, dry spice, and the sweet resin bite of incense clinging to sandstone like memory. It doesn't smell like hurried buying. It smells like careful hands packing precious things into jars and baskets so they can survive dust, heat, and long roads. A row of stalls appears, carved into sheltered alcoves. Some are closed with woven screens pulled down tight, edges tied with cord. Some are half open for late sorting and quiet bundling. Low oil lamps rest in niches, flames steady and sleepy. Their light softens everything. Even the rose stone seems gentler, as if it knows you're here to loosen your shoulders, not to judge anyone's stores. You drift along with your gaze relaxed. Baskets sit stacked like little hills. Jars line shelves in tidy ranks, mouths sealed with cloth and pale clay, like the cistern jars, like Petra's habit of protecting what matters. Folded textiles lie on a cloth, banded in deep blue and ember red, muted under lamplight. You remember dye turning darker when air touched it, and you feel your own thoughts doing the same, settling into a deeper shade. In one alcove, strings of beads hang from a wooden peg. Some are stone, cool and matte. Some are shell, catching lamplight in small milky flashes. Some are dark and glossy, like tiny pieces of night. They don't sparkle loudly. They shimmer the way water shimmers in a basin. Your fingers itch to touch them, and you keep your hands close. Petra has been teaching you this all night. Admire without grabbing, want without stealing. A shallow dish holds dried leaves and curled bark, sorted by scent. You lean in and breathe gently. One pile smells peppery and sharp, waking the back of your nose for a second. Another smells woody and warm. Another carries that sweet resin note, frankincense and myrrh, fragrance that can cross deserts and still feel like a clean room. In a dry world, scent is a kind of water for the mind. Farther along, you notice small weights, smooth stones shaped into consistent sizes, resting beside a simple balance beam. No ornate metal, no loud decoration, just the quiet logic of fairness. A pinch of spice is poured into cloth, the beam adjusted, a knot tied with practiced fingers. The movement is efficient but never rushed. Even commerce keeps the same pace as weaving, measured, repeated calm. Markings on stall posts catch your eye, simple scratches, tiny rows of dots, small symbols, records without drama. Notes to the future, What was stored, what was traded, what must be replaced. You think of pebbles stacked by the cistern lines, those indoor cairns of accounting. Petra's humor stays very dry. It teaches you careful measuring in the middle of a dream. Your tired body, annoyingly, finds that reassuring. On a cloth, carved bowls and small stone lamps rest in neat order, their curves softened by time and touch. Vine-like lines run along rims, the same kind of patient incision you attempted earlier. Your own little carved fragment sits in your pouch, warm from your body, dusty and imperfect. You don't pull it out. You simply feel it there and let it be a private proof that you were allowed to participate. A narrow lane opens between stalls, darker and cooler. Here the lamps are fewer, the sounds smaller, a soft footfall, the brush of cloth, the creak of cord. No one announces themselves with noise. It's the kind of market that trusts the night. Goods aren't guarded by shouting. They're guarded by habit, by familiarity, by the simple fact that hands are known. You pause near a stack of woven baskets and notice a bundle tied with dyed cord, blue as a midnight river, red as embers under ash. The knot is neat, ends tucked, a small bead carved smooth. It's the same aesthetic you've seen everywhere, beauty that doubles as function. You imagine it traveling tomorrow, spices wrapped carefully, cloth protected, bread tucked in for the road. Daytime will be busy. Night is where the work gets organized. A faint scent trail drifts past you, mint, then smoke, then something floral and dry, and you follow it to a niche where herbs hang upside down, drying. Beneath them sits a bowl of crushed leaves and a smooth stone used for grinding. The grinder's surface is worn into a gentle hollow, like a thumbprint made by many thumbs. You rest your fingertip in that hollow for a moment, and feel the intimacy of repetition. When you return to the main row, the lamps look warmer, like little hearths. You take a slow sip from your water skin and taste minerals and leather, and you realize you're tasting the same philosophy running through the whole place. Carry what you need, protect it, share it gently. Shadows cling to jars. Beads hang like tiny moons. Incense lingers in stone. The market becomes a lullaby made of ordinary objects, and your body grows heavier, ready to be guided onward toward quieter lanes and the soft rituals of leaving. You follow the lantern and let the scents fade behind you like a final sigh. You drift away from the last warm lamps of the market, letting scent trails loosen from your clothes the way dreams loosen when you wake. The lane narrows, then opens, and the rock around you feels more familiar again. Petra's steady shoulders, holding the night in place while you move through it. Lantern light guides you back toward the heart of the carved city. Your steps are quiet, but you can hear them anyway, softened by sand and swallowed by stone. You feel heavier in the best way, bread weighted, tea warmed, worry lightened. Even your water skin sits more obediently now, snug at your hip, as if it understands it's part of your dignity. Not all of it. Just the portable part. You slow near a familiar basin, tucked into rock, where the stream runs again in a thin, steady ribbon. The sound is different now that you've learned its language. It's not just water. It's care moving through a groove someone carved because the future was coming and needed help. You dip your fingers and rinse them, quick, respectful, no splashing. The coolness slides over your skin, and the last scent of incense and spice fades into something simpler: stone, water, night air. A tiny reed bundle rests nearby, set down neatly, its tips damp from earlier brushing. You touch it lightly with one finger, a quiet thank you to humble tools that solve problems without showing off. You think of the small blockage and how your body wanted to make it a bigger story than it was. You smile at yourself, soft and private. The night has been patient with you. You can be patient with your own mistakes. You move on, following the path that leads back past the courtyard's shelter. The oven's glow has dimmed, embers now a low red pulse. like a heart choosing rest. The loom sits quiet, threads held in gentle tension, pattern paused mid-breath. Dyed cloth hangs and deepens in the cool air, becoming more itself as the night continues to touch it. You pass the stone table where chisels once tapped. The tools are laid out again in neat rows, as if they're sleeping in formation. You imagine the hands that will wake them later, and you feel a small tenderness for work that waits without anxiety. Your pouch presses against your side, and you remember the little piece of sandstone you carved, your shallow curve, your imperfect groove. You pull it out briefly in lantern light. It looks modest, almost shy, but your thumb finds the line you made and recognizes it as yours. Not because it's brilliant, but because you were present while you made it. You hold it a moment, then set it gently on the edge of the stone table, where it can be found without ceremony. A quiet offering, return to the place that taught your hands to slow down. You take a breath and feel the air cooler now, less ember-warmed. The night is thinning at the edges. Not dawn yet, just the sense of it, like a pale idea far away. You begin the long descent out of Petra's inner spaces, letting your feet follow memory, along curved paths, between rock faces, toward the narrower corridor that leads back into the sick. The steps appear again, the worn footholds that carried you up toward stars earlier. You pause at the spot where you once reached for your water skin and met air. The memory is almost funny now, a small lesson folded into your pocket. You pat the water skin once, gentle, appreciative, and move on. As you climb a few steps in reverse, more slowly now, you find the little cairn where you added a pebble. It sits quietly at the edge of the path, still neat, still stubbornly simple. You pick up another small stone from the ground, cool, smooth, ordinary, and place it carefully on the stack. The tiny click sounds like closure. You don't ask for anything. You just acknowledge, I was here, and I'm leaving softer than I arrived. The wind brushes your face again, and you lift your gaze to the strip of sky between rock shoulders. Stars still hold their positions, but you sense the dark changing from pitch to velvet. The shift is so subtle you could miss it if you were busy. Tonight you are not busy. You continue downward, letting the path fold you toward the sixth mouth. The canyon walls grow taller and closer as you approach, and the sky becomes a ribbon again. The sick receives you the way it did at the beginning, cool, protective, quietly impressive without demanding praise. Inside the narrow gorge, the world becomes simpler, stone on both sides, sand underfoot, a faint vein of carved channel near the base of the wall. You slow and let your fingertips brush the groove once more. It feels like reading the same line in a favorite book before you close it. You follow the channel with your eyes for a few paces, watching where it dips and disappears, remembering the cistern chamber and the measured lines on stone. You whisper a thank you without words by simply noticing. In a niche along the wall, you spot a faint soot trace, an old lamp's ghost. You rest your palm on the niche's edge for a heartbeat, letting your hand feel the stone's coolness. You imagine lantern flames kept safe here, and you feel grateful for every small thing that makes a night walk possible. Your breath fogs faintly in the cooler air, barely visible, but there. You take a slow sip of water, measured again, and let the coolness settle in your throat. You don't overdrink. You've learned too much tonight to be careless now. Step by step, you move deeper along the canyon, the way you move deeper into the story. The walls hold your quiet. Your mind carries gentle callbacks like smooth stones, warm bread, mint tea, blue dye blooming in air, chisel taps that felt like a heartbeat, a reed bundle fixing a stubborn clog, a missing water skin found by listening. You don't clutch these memories. You let them rest in you, loose and comforting, as the stick guides you toward the outer edge of Petra where the night is beginning to soften and the world is preparing, very slowly, to return you. You keep walking through the sick as if the canyon is finishing a sentence in a low voice. The walls stay close, and the sky above stays thin, but the darkness is no longer as deep. It has a faint softness at the edges, like velvet beginning to catch pale dust. You feel it before you see it, the world tipping gently toward morning. Sand shifts under your steps with a quiet shush, the same sound it made when you first entered, only now it feels familiar, like returning to a room after someone has made the bed. Your water skin taps slightly against your hip with each step, a steady reminder of your earlier clumsiness. You pat it once, almost amused. You came to time travel and became the kind of traveler who misplaces water in a desert city. Petra, ever patient, turned that into a lesson instead of a punishment. The carved channel along the wall appears again in the dim lantern glow. The groove runs forward, slips behind a ridge, then returns, faithful, unconcerned with your schedule. You trace it with your eyes and think of the cistern chamber, cool air, sealed jars, careful lines etched into stone. You think of the basin stream returning after the silk plug gave way, the reed bundle damp at the tips, the smooth pebble rocking in small circles until water could breathe again. A wider opening appears ahead, and the stick loosens its grip for the last time. You step out into a broader space where the sky opens like a slow yawn. The stars are still there, but quieter now, preparing to fade without complaint. Along the horizon, dawn gathers, an almost colorless light that feels more like a change in texture than a change in brightness. You turn back once, because your body wants to, because the night has been teaching you to honor what holds you. The canyon behind you stands tall and still, rose stone layered with darker bands that look like folded cloth. Somewhere deeper inside, the treasury waits in its carved calm, and you don't need to see it to feel it. It's there like a heartbeat you remember after the sound stops. A breeze drifts across the open ground and brings the faintest scent of smoke, embers from the courtyard settling into ash. Your mind flashes small images the way lantern light once flashed across niches, bread rounds stacked like warm moons, mint tea warm in your palms, dyed cloth deepening into night blue when air touched it, the loom's soft thump like a heartbeat under blankets, stone dust on your fingertips. You remember the little groove you carved, and the quiet relief of leaving it behind, not to collect, but to return it to the place that steadied you. You take a measured sip of water, slow enough to taste the mineral note, and you let it land and you like reassurance. The desert air is still dry, still honest, but it no longer feels like it's testing you. It feels like it's simply being what it is, wide, quiet, and full of space for your breath. As the light grows, you notice small movements at the edge of the path, early figures rising, wrapping cloth tighter, lifting baskets, adjusting cords. No one performs a farewell. Life simply begins again, practical and gentle. You watch the steady economy of motion and feel a quiet tenderness for it. Here, care doesn't wait for special occasions. You walk on, following the path away from the carved city, and dawn continues to arrive the way Petra teaches, gradually, consistently, without drama. The sky shifts from deep ink to softened charcoal, then to a pale wash that makes the sandstone glow from within. Rose becomes more rose. Shadows shorten. Edges sharpen. The world reintroduces itself. At a small rise, you pause and look back one last time. The canyon mouth is darker than the open desert, a quiet doorway. It looks like a place you could step into again, and immediately feel your shoulders drop. You imagine hidden channels running through stone, the cistern holding cool water in its sealed breath, the basin catching a thin stream that whispers rather than sings. You imagine hands waking and beginning their work, grinding grain, weaving thread, tapping chisels, each sound soft enough to keep the city's heart from waking too fast. You realize, with mild, sleepy humor, that you will try to explain this later and fail. You will say the place is beautiful, which is true but insufficient. You will mention rose canyons and starlight, and those will be true but still not it. The real gift is quieter. Petra taught you how to be gentle with time, how to let small problems stay small, how to trust steady hands, your own included. Even your silly moment of reaching for a missing water skin becomes a soft story now, harmless as a pebble click. The morning breeze lifts again, and you feel it brush your eyelashes like a closing gesture. You lower your chin slightly, as if accepting a blessing. Then you turn forward and keep walking, carrying no souvenirs except dust that will wash away and calm that might, if you're lucky, linger. And as the first sun edges over distant stone, the night's last softness stays with you, like mint on the tongue, like warm bread in the belly, like water whispering along a hidden groove, until your thoughts grow slow and your tiredness finally wins in the gentlest way possible. The path ahead grows simple, and your body likes simple. With each step, the desert air cools and smooths your thoughts, the way water smooths a pebble when it has all the time in the world. Behind you, Petra stays where it has always stayed, carved into rose stone, holding its channels and cisterns and quiet skills without needing anyone to praise it. You carried the feeling of it instead, light as dust, warm as bread, clean as a mint breath that lingers after the cup is set down. You let your shoulders fall, and you let your hands hang loose at your sides. Your water skin rests against you, steady, and you no longer need to check it. The lesson has already settled. Small mistakes can be met with patience. Small repairs can be made with reeds and a smooth pebble. Small kindness can be offered without words and still feel like a blanket. The sky keeps paling, but the night's gentleness doesn't vanish. It just thins, like smoke from embers, like the last echo in the stone theater, like dye deepening slowly while everyone sleeps. You breathe in through your nose and taste nothing urgent, nothing sharp, only air that is cool and honest. You breathe out and feel your ribs soften, your jaw unclench, your eyelids grow heavy in that pleasant, inevitable way. In your mind, lantern light flickers once more along sandstone, then dims. The basin stream whispers, then becomes a memory. The loom's steady thump fades into the quiet rhythm of your own heart. And as you keep walking, you feel sleep arrive like a careful guide, taking your hand, lowering your thoughts one gentle step at a time, until everything inside you becomes soft, slow, and safe. So safe that you can finally let go now. End of story. Sweet dreams.